guys. Good afternoon. Appreciate you being here. Wrapping up our last padded practice and finishing up with 2-minute drill before we get to more of the mental stuff and a little bit of the less contact practices, the less physical practices, where we need to be. Bottom line is, we've practiced hard. We've made a lot of progress. We're still not done. We have several things we still got to clean up as we prepare for a game, and that's normal. So, that being said, questions?
Coach, do you have any update on the position battles you mentioned? We're still kind of up in the air this week.
Yeah, I'd say that we'll close. I wish we could do this press conference on a Thursday after we watch film, because that certainly it helps you, and you want to be fair to the guys. But it's been, quite honestly, the kicking competition has been real, because Cattleman wins it at the end of last year. In the springtime, he wins it, but Cam comes back, and I believe he hit 37 of 40 in camp. So if you're going to make competition real, you got to make it real. You got to let it play itself out. So that's what we're working with today. Cattleman hit one at the end of today for 2 minutes. So it's been going back and forth. The corner spot, really pleased with the way those guys are coming around. They're just doing a really good job. So I'm glad they're making it difficult, because that means that they're competing well, and we have confidence in those guys to do a good job. I know there's some stuff up front as well that we're mixing and matching at linebacker as well. Some guys nicked up and playing through. So all in all, just a very productive camp. A really good game week of practice. We still got a lot of stuff to do. They're an excellent football team, and we got to be prepared.
Do you envision playing multiple quarterbacks behind Anthony Brown this season? Like just two guys maybe get in at different times of the year?
I haven't gone that route. Would like to settle on who's going to go in right after.
You say that you're, where you want to be heading into this game against Fresno State. What does that entail for you from what you're seeing from your team?
That we're practicing hard. We're executing at a fairly high level, and need to touch up some things, need to clean up some things. But the effort is there, the attention to detail is there, the physicality is improving. I don't know if we'll ever reach the point where we're satisfied with that, but certainly we see progress. And we see a hunger in our approach, and that's what you want when you're playing. That's what you want when you're preparing for a game against an opponent that has some really, really good players. And again, we haven't played in front of our fans in a long, long time. I think they've done a good job cutting out the outside noise, and we judge that by the way they pay attention in meetings, by the way we carry out and execute in practice. So we expect nothing but our very best.
With that said, is there still an excitement and an anticipation building for a game that's coming in 3 days?
Oh, I would say that. I just I don't talk about emotion much, because that's just not part of the process. My job is the opposite, to make sure that the focus is on passion for the game, and harnessing all those feelings and making sure that, we're directing them and placing our guys in position to be successful and make plays by focusing on what they have to, not let them get caught up in the other stuff. But yeah, of course they'll feel it. I mean, when they walk out and they see people for the first time, when they're wearing a game day uniform, when they're seeing an opponent on the other sideline, yeah, it's real. And the only way to be successful on that day is to make sure you're successful during the week. So our focus is always on that.
For myriad to head coach, the penalties, and particularly the pre-snap penalties, have gone down. It feels like almost every year. How has that gone through camp, and do you feel like this team's in a good spot going in for eliminating pre-snap penalties?
Well, we have to be. It's certainly a point of emphasis. We've had up and down days. When you install new stuff, anything that creates anxiety creates penalties. I think early during install, you saw that a little bit more, a lot more than as of late. We've certainly done a much better job, and we're still improving. We have officials every day at practice. That helps us a bunch. So, but also, we're not scaling back anything. We're throwing the kitchen sink at our guys all the way through, up until even tonight in our meetings. We'll finish up our install and touching up our packages before we polish them off and cut some things out. And we feel good about the penalty part of it.
For myriad reasons last season, the offense never quite established an identity. Either receivers were in and out, CJ was out a lot. What do you feel like this offense's identity is when you're as well stocked as you are now?
Oh, I feel you got to show it. I refuse to get up here and talk about it. I know we want to be. I know we want to establish ourselves as. We got to come out and show it on Saturday. That way we could talk about it better in a real light. I think anything else is just hype and nonsense. Got to go out and do it.
We haven't had this conversation about a year because there was no red shirt a year ago, but when do you start talking to your guys about maybe playing before or less and using a red shirt year? Is that a conversation that's happened with some of them?
Well, it's so it's so fluid, right? Because of injuries, because of COVID possibilities and the issues that come with that as well. So you never know. I mean, some of these games that they can play or cannot play in could be staggered to the point where it's just almost like a running gauge as to how you're going to use it and when you're going to use it. We do have a developmental scrimmage. When I say scrimmage, we stay up, we don't tackle. We have one every single Friday. We go good on good every single day, so we continue developing our guys. And traditionally, or at least for the past 3 years, I'd say anywhere from 6 to 10 players have ended up moving up, where they're either helping on special teams or offense and defense. And I think right now that's probably more important than ever. Almost like the developmental squad in the NFL, where you can have guys just come right on up, plug and play. So I think you just have to have an open mind on how you do it and be very strategic and prepare for the worst and go from there.
Coach, Fresno State does a great job of putting pressure on quarterbacks. What's going to be the key to keeping Anthony Brown clean on Saturday?
Well, like you said, they do a great job, and they have really good players, but they have a really good scheme. They disguise their pressures really well. But they do it with four-man pressure also. They're athletic enough where they don't have to tip off what they're going to do with their alignments. Typically, defensive ends, edge guys that have a tough time long sticking, getting in the B gap or whatnot, they tend to cheat, change up their stance. These guys are athletic enough where it all looks the same, and all of a sudden, boom, you're hit with a T, all of a sudden you're hit with a dig. It's very different. And then the way they run their stunts in games are very well coached. Their get off looks like exactly like they would when they're just rushing their lanes, as they would be. And all of a sudden there's a foot in the ground, there's a collision, boom, T-E-E-T, three-man game, linebacker plug. They disguise it well too. They're at 3.5 to 4 yards, but they could be coming, or they could just be playing, what they do from a sound defensive standpoint. That's why they present challenges, not only from a personnel standpoint, but the fact that they're disciplined in the way that they line up and what they activate from there, whether it be a pressure or line center movement.
Coach, your total roster is represented by 24 different states in the United States, only second to Stanford. What does that tell you about the program? Is that a goal, a specific goal you had, or just shows how successful you've been?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great stat. I think it's a reflection of maybe what the world should be, people coming from all over, right, with a common vision and a purpose and working together. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat that you could have alphas coming from all different parts and then come together and work with each other, maybe bump heads a little bit at first, but continuing to work through and building relationships to get everything going in a certain direction. So I think it's a tremendous advantage being in Oregon, being a national brand. We can do that. We're very fortunate. We certainly don't take it for granted. And it's important to note that for it to work, some come from really far away, that when they get here, it has to feel real. The home and being a second home and having people that have your back and are going to do right by you has to be real, because if not, it doesn't work. So certainly we're proud of all of our people here. We all work as one. Very fortunate to have the people we have here.
That or designation you got between Drew and Justin at that linebacker position, is that something that's more rotational, or is that something you got to figure out or want to figure out by the time Thursday hits?
Oh, some guys get nicked up during camp, goes back and forth. Those guys have played really good football. You got to play multiple players, right? It's going to be a long season. Certainly the way offenses do their thing nowadays, they're snapping the ball 80, sometimes 90 times a game. You got to get guys in there. So those guys are ready to play football. They played really well.
They're both healthy and full?
They're both healthy.
You've made a name for yourself in part because of a relentless work ethic. What do you like about the game planning process and the challenges that come with planning for different opponents?
Oh, I love camp. I love preparation. I love anything that revolves around planning and discipline, regimentation, hard work. I love the opportunity to be able to, if given a certain amount of hours during the day, that to have a group of dedicated men and women that are willing to outwork whatever it is we're going to go against, or at least give our best effort always to outwork everybody. So but I don't judge anybody else. I'm sure other people are working really hard. I just like I said, I'm kind of boring. I don't have many things that I like besides what we do for a living as a vocation. So just very fortunate to do it, and just all the way in all the time.
A couple of guys whose families just could have been impacted this week, Mario, by the hurricane. Just Devin Lewis, Trey, how are, because especially for folks who could have been planning to come out here, how is everybody?
Yeah, some guys have moved. Some families have had to move, and then we'll have to, like Devin will be joining us in a little bit. they had to move a little bit. Then he's gonna have to go back, grab his stuff, and come on over. So certainly thoughts and prayers and with everybody and checking on those guys. It's tough stuff, but it's real. As we've seen before. So always making sure that our guys are okay.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Guys, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.